Hello, Planeswalkers. Welcome back to the next episode of the Lotus Archives. As always, I am Kava.
What's happening, everybody? This is Jack.
And this week, we are talking Mono Red. That's right.
Hell yeah!
Your favorite degenerates. We each have selected, as always, 5 distinct commanders that we want to talk about. So, Jack, why don't you start it off? What's your first pick?
My first pick has got to be my main man, Slicer, Hired Muscle.
Oof. You're a transformer.
We're starting off strong here, buddy. I absolutely love this deck. So, I built this guy for a number of reasons. One was the main reason I built him was purely nostalgia. As a huge Transformers fan, Slicer is based off of my personal favorite one from when I was a kid, who has kind of a crazy story. His name was changed, actually. His original name was Wheeljack.
Yeah, I was going to say. He wasn't always Slicer.
No, so, it's from the art they have of him is from the Armada series, which is the one I mainly grew up with. And in that series, he was called Wheeljack, who was a big friend of one of the other Autobots. But they had an accident. He ended up switching sides to the Decepticons, which Decepticons all the way, because they're just right. But I could go on for hours on that one. But mostly, he was just my favorite one, so I built him up. And he is very unique in how he plays. So Slicer High Muscle is a 5-drop. He's 4 and a red for a legendary artifact creature robot with double strike, haste, and at the beginning of each opponent's... So, like all the other Transformer robot cards, he has the More Than Meets the Eye, which is 2 and a red. You may cast the card for its converted cost for the 3 and a red, which has him come into play on his flip side, Slicer, High Speed, Antagonist. So this side is a 3-2, has first strike and haste, and whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you convert him at the end of combat.
Okay.
Which basically just means converting is just flipping them back and forth, basically. And the really cool bit about these More Than Meets the Eye and Transformers cards is they have living metal. So their flip side is a vehicle, but the living metal makes them a creature on your turn.
Yep.
Which is really cool. So they don't actually get crewed up in any way. And all the Transformers cards have that little, extra bit to them. So the main staple, the main way you play this deck, is basically the way I built it is it's fully optimized. So I think given the new bracket, this is a little side caveat, but I think given the new bracket system, we can also note where we think they sit on the bracket tier, but then also still give our own personal ranking for them, I think.
Okay.
So, like I built for him, it did end up being a bracket 4, so it's very optimized, very fast.
Well, yeah.
It's got mana, it plays things like Lotus Petal, Spirit Guide, a lot of rituals like Seething Song, to basically get him out very quickly, almost turn 1. I can turn 1 his flip side very quickly, and that will basically let you swing at somebody for 3, and then convert him, and then once you've converted him, the fun just starts. You start, giving him to your opponents on each of their turns, and then you just sit back and watch them beat each other up with Slicer. This is your commander, right? So they'll get commander damage.
Yep.
From him. So that's 6 damage every turn cycle, which can knock somebody up quickly. And you basically pair this with a slew of equipments to slap onto him, because even if he's under somebody else's control, the artifact is still yours.
Yep.
So you have something like Rogue's Gloves, that whenever the creature deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. The owner of the equipment is still the owner of Slicer under the opponent's control. So they don't get to draw those cards, you do. which is super sweet.
Yeah. It makes it interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah. Like there was a game where my buddies and I got together and we played, just no holds bar, play your biggest thing, and Slicer killed somebody on turn 3.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah, it was just like the nut draw, God hand style. We all just were, going super fast, and he knocked people out quickly. The downside is if it's a 1v1, it's a little trickier because like once you get down to just you and one opponent, you don't really want to give him to them because while he does get goaded, goading does not prevent the card from attacking you, right? You're the owner if you're the only one there. So if it's just you and one opponent, you goad Slicer, he's still gonna attack the owner if you're the only one left.
Yeah. That makes it. Yeah.
Just wanted to be aware. It's like you don't have to give him to your opponent. He's got that you may ability to it. It's like you may give him to them, but if you don't give him to your opponent, you end up flipping him back over to his vehicle side. So there's a bit of strategy needed in that. Yeah, and with all those, he's high for sure. He's S tier for sure.
All right. Yeah, I would put him high up there as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, the next card that I want to talk about.
Yeah, what do you got?
He is my little buddy, and I wanted to talk about someone a little bit different, and that is going to be Ragavan Nimble Pilferer.
The monkey.
So, the crazy little monkey, he is a solo red mana, and he is a legendary monkey pirate. He is a 2/1, and he reads whenever Ragavan Nimble Pilferer deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token, and exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may cast that card. And he has dash on his rules text, and it reads, you may cast a spell for its dash cost. If you do, it gains haste, and it's returned from the battlefield to its owner's hand at the beginning of this next end step. So that's interesting because that can help you get around commander attacks a little bit.
Very sneaky, yeah.
Unfortunately, it goes right to your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can recast it for 1 red mana after it's back to your hand. But
you could, yeah.
Some of the cards I wanted to talk about with that is a card by the name of Zorn. He is 2 and a red, and it reads, if you would create 1 or more treasure tokens, instead, create those tokens plus an additional treasure token. So, with Ragavan, essentially, my whole mindset with him is creating a shit ton of treasure tokens and just destroying with pirates. I'm going to be putting in a lot of cards in this deck, like Breach's Eager Pillager. He's 2 and a red for a 3/3 Goblin Pirate with first strike. And it reads, whenever a pirate you control attacks, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Create a treasure token, or target creature can't block this turn, or exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. And then I'm also putting in a card of Goldspan Dragon. He is 3 and 2 red for a 4/4 dragon with flying and haste. And he reads, whenever Goldspan Dragon attacks or becomes the target of a spell, create a treasure token. And it has treasures you control have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 2 mana of any color. So essentially for Ragavan, I am going to be making it a treasure-based deck with a pirate sub-theme. I wouldn't consider it the top of the top line deck. Essentially, you're going to be building a lot of fast mana. It's probably going to be a little bit more on the expensive end to build. Unfortunately, there was the best card for this deck was banned not too long ago. But
Yeah. Might get unbanned soon. We got
I would love to
coming
see
up
it
in
be
April.
unbanned.
I'm
But
thinking with the system we got, it might be unbanned.
yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing.
His price went back up.
Did it shoot back up?
It did. For
Ooh.
those who don't, we're talking about Dockside Extortionist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It did go up. Give me one second. Go ahead and keep going. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, so the card I was talking about was Dockside Extortionist. It is a great card for this deck.
Yeah, it's about $35 now.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
with $35, it shot back up a little bit. I'm
It was like in the
hoping.
70s the other day, or like last week it was in the 70s.
Oh
It
shit,
dropped
was it?
again. Yeah, it got up there. So might be getting unbanned with the new game changer list and all that. Look for that. Hold on to your dock set. You still got them. And if you sold it already, well, womp.
All right, sorry about that, folks. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. I don't know why I frickin' just sounded Australian there, but
And out.
so with Ragavan, you are gonna want a lot of cards that help with treasure tokens, essentially.
Yeah.
So you're gonna want cards like Sticky Fingers, Professional Face Breaker, and even a card like Academy Manufacturer could be pretty good, or Manufacturer could be pretty good. That gives
Yeah, I
you
would say
more
so.
clue and food tokens as well. One of the cool nifty cards for this one, it could probably be Atali Primal Storm. Could be an interesting way to cheat out some spells for yourself. But breaches, or not breaches, wow, Ragavan, depending on how he is built, I would probably put him in the A tier. Jack, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I would say definitely like a high A. He can, if, because this is where like the building of it comes into play. Because he can, I have seen CDH builds of him.
Oh yeah,
So
without a
if you
doubt.
want to go the crazy, like, you know, optimized meta deck, S tier style, he definitely has the potential to do, that sort of stuff. He can be very fast. You can get him out quickly, and turn one potentially stealing somebody's card at the top can be devastating in some ways. And the fact that he just, he evades removal very well with the dash ability. He just goes in, comes out, keeps doing his stuff, and he can be very good. So I'd say high A, possible S for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely put him in there. He's very,
Yeah,
very solid. So, Jack, what is your
absolutely.
next commander you wanted to talk about?
My next one here is quite the little bastard, actually. It is Zada, Hedron Grinder.
Okay, yep. I was looking at him as well to chat about,
Yeah.
and he is a lot of fun.
Yep, so it's a 3 and a red for a legendary creature goblin ally. So if you want to play allies, you can. But whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Zada, you copy that spell for each other creature you control that spell could target, and each copy targets a different one of those creatures. And Zada is a 3/3.
Yeah, fuck.
So, this is a, mass token generation, big board, wide sweeping style deck where you're chaining together a lot of these crazy one drop, two drop cards that red is famous for that typically are only designed to target one creature. But because of the way Zada works, you just fill the board with a lot of tokens, typically goblins, because goblins are really good at flooding the board. And you go buck wild from there. You know, the best example is a card as simple as Expedite, which is simply you give a creature haste until end of turn, and then you draw a card. So if you've got, say, 5 goblin tokens on the board, and then you've got Zada, right? So that's 6. You target Zada with Expedite, it then copies Expedite to target every other creature you control, and you went from drawing 1 card to giving a creature haste to now giving 6 creatures haste and drawing 6 cards. The same can be said for something as simple as Sudden Breakthrough, which is a 1 in a red, and you give a creature +2/+0 and first strike, but then you also make a treasure token. So you're making like 6 to 7 treasures, then you can draw 6 to 7 cards, and that just keeps the ball rolling. You've got so many cards out there that do things like this, and so many ways to make goblin tokens with like Kranko's Command, Dragon Fodder, simple stuff like that, where it's just whenever you do, you make the tokens, you do the stuff, you target Zada, and it just gets really out of hand really quickly. There was a guy I knew way back in the day when I was in college who played a deck like this. It was just insane. Like, we would have to bring out our best deck for it. We wouldn't be able to just play, like, it wasn't no kiddie game with Zada. It's like, oh, he pulled this one out? Okay, we need to target him first and kill him immediately, because if we don't, we're all fucked. So, yeah.
Yeah, that seems, yeah.
Zada can be very wild, very quick, very fast, very terrifying in a number of different ways. Like, don't let the 4-drop aspect of it fool you. You can easily get that out turn 2, given the crazy fast mana that Red's known for, all the rituals and, quick, easy ways to pop that out. It can be done no problem.
Yeah, you could easily cheat him out quick.
Yeah. So, I would absolutely put it in the S tier for sure.
Yeah, I would put him in S tier as well. So my next guy here, he is a interesting one. I wouldn't consider him one of the best, but he has an interesting mechanic, which is why I liked him so much, and I've been tempted to make him for myself. But that would be Gornog, the Red Reaper. So Gornog is 2 in a red for a 2/3 legendary creature Minotaur warrior with haste. And his rules text reads, cowards cannot block warriors. Whenever 1 or more warriors you control attacks a player, target creature that player controls becomes a coward. Attacking warriors you control get +X+0, where X is the number of cowards your opponents control. It is fucking with your opponent's board state.
That's pretty wild. I love it. There was another card that does that too, though, wasn't there?
Oh, yes.
I'm pretty sure there was an older card that did the same thing.
There was a couple of things that do that. Some of the cards that you're going to want in this deck are cards like Lavissa Cold Eyes. She is 3 and 2 red for a 3/3 human lord. And she reads, barbarians, warriors, and berserkers gain +2/+2 and have haste.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Another card that is fun with this deck would be Bloodmark Mentor. For 1 in a red, he is a 1/1 goblin warrior, and all he does is he reads, red creatures you control have first strike.
That's pretty good.
Yes. And he's cheap. He's $1.20 right now. And the other third card that I thought you needed to put in this is
Hmm.
Bright Hearth Banneret. And he is a 1 in a red for a 1/1 elemental warrior. And it reads elemental and warrior spells you play cost 1 less to play. So,
That's pretty good.
exactly. So, some of the other high synergy cards that you're going to want, and the one that you were referencing would be Kargan Intimidator. He is a
Oh
1
yeah,
red for a 3/1 human warrior, and it reads Cowards can't block warriors. And for 1 mana, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Kargan Intimidator gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Target creature becomes a coward until end of turn. Target warrior gains trample until end of turn. So,
that's wild.
yeah, this Gornog deck has the potential to be really freaking good if built the right way. Obviously, you can build it cheap, but this is going to be a straight up aggro deck. Um, you're not
Hmm.
going to do much more than caring about attacking. And you're
Yeah, just
hoping,
swing, swing, swing.
yeah, you're hoping to push the frickin' attackers through and win with just straight up combat damage. Not even necessarily commander damage, just straight up combat damage. Making all your opponent's creatures pretty much making it so that they can't block your creatures.
Right.
This type of deck,
That is in Red's wheelhouse.
oh yes, this type of
Yeah.
deck could probably struggle a lot against like a spell slinger style deck.
Mm. That like combo if the combo player pops off too quickly
Yeah,
before they
because
can get their combat roll
yeah,
going.
because this is gonna take a little bit to set up. It's gonna
Hmm.
struggle against a deck that is creature token heavy, just because of
Right.
those sheer amount of tokens that now you have to turn into freaking cowards just to be able to go through unblockable.
Right.
But with that, I'd probably put Gornog at right around the B tier. I don't think he's as powerful as like Zada or Slicer, but I'd put him right around B. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. I would say he looks like a very fun, wild commander to play. Very thematic, very solid. He could definitely be a really cool, fun guy to play in like a unique style. Just I just want to. I'm here to play warriors, and I'm here to make you all cowards because you. How dare you face me in the battlefield? You will fall. And like just a really cool, fun, unique style of play where it's like the embodiment of the like carnage and fury of red. I think so. Like that's really cool. Like even just looking at his card art, like this guy is just an absolute badass man. Like his he's bursting through. He's coming in like the Kool Aid Man, going, "Oh yeah!" Like
Exactly.
he's very cool. It's a very cool thematic way to play, which I don't see enough people doing. I think more people should play decks like that.
And with that being said, I know we've talked about the different tiers of the commander brackets now.
Hmm.
For him, I don't think you're making a tier 1 deck. it,
I mean, he could be. Well,
it,
I'd say a
it,
two.
yeah.
He could be a fun like cool deck to play against a precon. Like if somebody just got a precon deck, like say maybe then like I don't know about the energy one, but like the zombie one that just came out, and you want to build like a warrior coward deck with Gornog, I think you could do that pretty well against the new zombie deck that came out.
Yeah, I mean, I
I
think
don't think
he's going
you'd
to be.
be.
No.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be way too strong for the pure thematic deck because of what he
Right.
does.
Yeah.
And
The
that
oops
comes
all
down.
horses and stuff like that.
Yeah. And that comes down to what we talked about prior about
Yep.
it's not necessarily by the books. You got to look
Right.
at the intent. Because even if I put all warriors in this deck, it's still going to be better than a freaking deck that only cares about, oh, everyone in it has a hat.
Right. Yeah. Or like the number four or stuff like that. Yeah. Or like my pirate deck that's just all pirate ships and not any of the good vehicles that it should be playing.
Exactly. So with that, I mean, I'd definitely put him around a B tier. Um,
For sure.
so
Yeah, good deal. So the next one I got here is a very interesting one that I built a while back. And it's actually one I dismantled for a slicer to make way. Just because, like, I only had the one bit of red card, so I had to dismantle one to rebuild the other.
oh, you mean you don't
But
have enough
this
red
is
cards?
no, no.
Why, you don't like
Only
red?
one style. I love red, but I can only build one type of deck. I can't have like three red decks or three black decks. If I have a black deck, that is my black deck. I don't have more than one style. Like I just can't. My brain can't process having several Mardu or several different decks of the same color. It just drives me nuts.
I mean, for me, something like that, it all depends on the style of the deck too.
Right, which
If it's
that
two
could
completely
be
different decks and two different play styles, I'm game. I can do that.
right.
You could do that with a lot of like red. I mean, you could have a freaking artifact based deck and then
Right.
freaking goblin deck. But that's
Which
another
might be
story.
why yeah. That could be why I rebuild one that I'll talk about after this guy. But for this one, this is Solfim Mayhem Dominus.
Fuck.
He is a oh yeah. This is 2 and 2 red for a legendary creature Phyrexian horror. And I love me them Phyrexians.
Yep.
He has if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. And for 1 and 2 Phyrexian red, you can discard 2 cards and put an indestructible counter on Solfim Mayhem Dominus. Yeah. And that Phyrexian mana, remember, that can be paid with life or red mana. So you can pay 1 colorless and 4 life, pitch 2 cards, and now he's indestructible. I would do that so many times. It's so good.
Yeah, fuck that.
Right? So this is who I would say is the quintessential burn commander. Like if you want to just watch the world burn, this is your guy because every burn spell out there cares about non-combat damage. This is all damage that you do during your main phase, during your end step, during your second main, whatever. Cards like Flame Rift, that's just 1 in a red, deal 4 damage to each player. With Sulfim out, guess what? That's 8 damage to everybody, which
Yeah.
is pretty damn hot, right? And you got things like Gutter Snipe that whenever you cast an instant sorcery, deal 2 damage to each opponent. Now it's 4 damage. This guy is just so much fun. I loved playing him. If I wanted a really fast game before I built Slicer, Solfim was my guy. If we were like, okay, we got time for one more, we maybe got like half an hour to play, I'd be like, all right, bet. Here's Burn. Let's go. And the matches would be over within maybe like 5 turns.
Yeah, that definitely makes a very, very
Right?
quick game.
Absolutely. With the main card that I would say that really solidifies this guy, and that I would say is probably a must-have for him. And it's a really cheap card too. It's only like $3.
Oh damn. Yeah, that is cheap.
The must-have is Heartless Hidetsugu.
Fuck that card.
Yeah, yeah. We all know Heartless Hidetsugu. 3 and 2 red. Ogre Shaman. It's a 4/3, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is you can tap him, and he deals damage to each player equal to half that player's life total, rounded down.
Yeah, screw that.
So if you wanted to just end the game the turn after Solfim comes out and you have Hidetsugu, okay, the game's over.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm just gonna burn the world. It's a draw. Let's go to the next game. It's so damn good. I loved everything about this deck. I played a lot of burn in Legacy, and so that's kind of what I wanted to do with this guy when I had him up. So like I would play, Lightning Bolt and crazy shit like that, just to be able to do crazy things. just lots of burn, lots of fast kills, wipe the board with Blasphemous Sacked. Because who doesn't want to do 26 damage to every creature, right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's pretty good. He was a lot of fun, but I definitely like having Slicer more than that one just because, nostalgia and shit like that. But Soulfin was very good. You could definitely build them on a budget too if you really wanted to. A lot of
Yeah.
the burn cards are very cheap. Like most of what I'm looking at, or like what I had for him, was under $1.
Oh damn, that's not even that
Soulfin
bad.
Soulfin himself though will probably get you around $30 to actually get the commander himself.
Yeah, I
So
want to
I
say
was
he's a
lucky
little
enough
bit.
to I pulled the alternate art foil of him when I went to a Phyrexian, the LLB1. I think I went to a pre-con event or not a pre-con event, a draft or something, and I got lucky enough to pull him out of a pack,
Oh damn.
which basically led me to build him up. So I got the cool, fun, unique art of it.
Yeah,
But other
that's
than like once you get the commander himself, the rest of the deck is dirt cheap.
yeah. So, what would you rank Sulfum?
He's definitely a high A for sure. Because
Yeah.
like Burn has its strong suits, but its biggest downside is if somebody has like any way to gain life back. That's the antithesis to the Burn deck. Which when I played Legacy, that was the biggest thing I came across. Was like, oh, somebody gained life. Okay, now my work is done. It's like my work was just completely undone and ruined because you gained back the 3 life I bolted from you.
Yeah,
So,
that's what makes it tough.
and life gain can be quite powerful. Just even incidental life gain that some people might have. Like you got different commanders out there that just coincidentally have lifelink, and they may not even be that focus of the deck, but even just gaining back life here and there can make it difficult for the burn deck. So he's definitely upper A for sure. As far as bracket wise goes, I would definitely put him as a 3,
Yeah,
just
I'd put him in
because
the
you
three.
can. Yeah, he definitely can fall into bracket 3. You
He,
could try to argue to put him lower, but I think just the nature of the beast here, where like the best in slot cards are just gonna be to deal as much damage as possible. I don't see a way that you could really like tone this down
yeah,
that
no.
much.
I mean, two of my other commanders, they're same type of deal.
Yeah,
They're you could try to make them a lower tier, but realistically, they're probably not going to end up being a lower tier.
no.
But
But yeah, so Solfim is good. He's definitely one that I would recommend somebody try out. As like a new player, I'd say he's definitely new player friendly for sure because you're just slinging burn spells, which is the same thing I would say to anybody getting into like a 60 card format. Well, 60 card 10 years ago, back when I was playing, because nowadays you've got so much like crazy stuff that's happened in like modern and legacy. I don't even know what that meta looks like anymore. So I couldn't really vouch for burn in those, but I know in legacy at least, burn was always prominent. You could always play burn. Modern, I have no idea. Modern's all
yeah,
over the damn place.
yeah. So with that, we talking about burn style decks. My next commander that I'm going to talk about is
I saw you had one.
one of my personal favorite artworks that I've ever seen on a card, at least for the showcase version of it,
Mm-hmm.
is Ogier Axonil, Deepest Might. And he is 2 and 2 red for a 4/4 legendary creature god. And he has trample. And he reads, if a red source you control would deal an amount of non-combat damage less than Ogier's power to an opponent, that source deals damage equal to Ogier's power instead. And then he reads, when Ogier dies, return it to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control. And his backside is Temple of Power. Tap, add red. or 2 red and tap. Transform Temple of Power. Activate only if a red source you control dealt 4 or more non-combat damage this turn, and only as a sorcery. So it gives you an immediate way to turn them back into a creature, as long as you do damage. If I'm understanding that correctly. So,
Yep, that sounds about right.
so that's pretty freaking cool. A lot of these flip commanders that have had, or the creatures that have had flip, haven't given you an opportunity to be able to turn them back into the other side that I'm aware of. But he is a pretty cool one. He's gonna have. I'm gonna be putting a lot of ping based effects. So cards like Firebrand Archer, one in a red for a 2/1 human archer. And he reads, or they read, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. So as long as I have Osier out there, there's 4 damage.
Yeah.
Gonna put cards. This just shows my assholeness. I would put a card like Repercussion in there.
Oh.
1 and 2 red for a enchantment. Whenever a creature is dealt damage, Repercussion deals that much damage to that creature's controller. And then I would
It's
put.
pretty good.
Then this card is another fun one. Aether Sting, or Ether Sting. For 3 and a red. Whenever one of your opponents plays a creature spell, Ether Sting deals 1 damage to that player. So if you're playing against someone that's a creature heavy deck and you have that out on the battlefield, every single time a creature spell is played, 4 damage.
Rip my elf deck.
Yeah.
Just burn my forest to cinders. Damn.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like the sound of that.
So I'm going to be playing a lot of cards in there that are doing ping damage. I would also 100% have Sulfum in there.
Their synergy is really cool.
Yeah, Sulfum would be in the 99 for sure. Just to, instead of 4 damage, now everything is 8 damage. And that non-combat damage, Red has so many cards that just ping
So
for
much,
1
dude.
or 2. You could build this deck up so freaking cheap,
Yeah.
but it could be so
One of
freaking
my good
powerful.
buddies, one of our good friends, Frank, actually, he plays an Ogier deck.
Oh, does he?
And he plays it to great effect. Like, this thing will, like, if we want to pull out our fast red decks, he plays this thing on par with my Slicer.
Oh,
Like,
damn.
it goes ham, dude. Like, yeah.
Like,
Every single time we try to do something, it's like, oh, you take 4. Oh, here's another 4. Oh, here's 6. Or here's 7. It's so damn good. It's so scary.
because
The
the
deck
cool
is
thing,
wild.
yeah, the cool thing about this deck is a lot of those ping effects are freaking cheap. 1 or
Yeah,
2
they
mana.
are.
I mean, if you really want to be mean, you could throw in a card like Mana Barbs.
Oh, we do. Oh, we do.
I mean, unfortunately, Mana Barbs is going to hurt you as a player as well. But if you have a bunch of enchantments that already hurt other people,
Mm-hmm.
or you have a lot of mana rocks, that's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
So if I
Well,
really
thankfully
wanted to be,
is it for Sulfim and Ogier, they only deal the extra damage to your opponents, which is quite good. So if you had something like, what is it, Sulfuric Vortex, that each upkeep it deals 2 damage, that gets really insane because, like, on your upkeep, it's only the 2 damage.
yep,
But everybody else's upkeep, if you got Sulfim and Ogier, guess what? You're
That's
taking 8 damage on your upkeep alone. That's what I'm talking about. Red is just so good for the fast game. Watch the world burn style. These two guys they go hand in hand. They're so good.
like, like as you know, I'm trying to build 1 mono red deck or one
Hmm.
monocolor deck of each color, extremely powerful. And I've been going back and forth on my mono red one between Krenko and Osier, just because I know how freaking powerful Osier can be, but so can Krenko. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm at a toss up. Do I want to build a mean deck like Osier, or do I want to build a deck that's just going to overrun you like Krenko? It's all going to depend because I already have Turgrid as my mono black mean deck, and
Yep.
Finn the Fangbearer as my mono green mean red or green deck. So it's one of those things for me. I'm like, which route do I go here? Do I want to build another really mean deck, or do I want to build something that's a little bit more friendly? But
It's a
with
toss
that,
up.
yeah, with that Osier, I would probably put him S tier, just because of how fast that can get.
Yeah.
He's very similar to Sulfum. I think he has a little bit of a leg up on Sulfum,
Hmm.
maybe.
We might
They're
disagree on that one.
they're very similar. I mean, EDH Rec has Osier having almost 3,000 more decks built, but that doesn't mean much. That's just how many people have built them. I
It
think
does mean
it's
he's more popular for
yes.
sure.
I think the biggest with Sulfum, you're gonna be doing a lot more damage. Whereas with Osier, you're focusing on the ping spells
Hmm.
and getting those fours. But Sulfum and Osier, I feel like it'd be a toss up as to which one is better.
I think you just play both.
Yeah, I mean,
I think they're both really good in their own rights, and there's definitely arguments that could be made for either one. Like they both have resiliency to them. You know, Sulfim can become indestructible for just discarding 2 cards, which Red does all the time. You know, you pitch an anger, and then all of a sudden, okay, now you're off to the races.
yeah, because I mean, the thing with Osier, you could bump him up with a bunch of +1/+1 counters, and now
Yep.
that,
So your damage can increase further.
yeah,
So he's definitely got the potential to do more, I think, and he can still be very resilient. So it really just comes down to dealer's choice, I'd say. Like,
yeah,
you
because
know,
you could probably easily build Osier up to frickin' 2020 easily,
yeah,
and now that one
yeah,
mana ping spell is dealing 20 damage.
yeah.
It could be
So they're definitely
very,
up there.
yeah, but I'd put realistically, I'd put him and Solfum at the same tier.
Yeah, I'd say
You're
their brackets are also going to be the same.
Yeah, you're not going to be playing him in a one or a two,
No,
but
no,
oh,
you could put him up to like he could go 3 to 4 for sure. I mean, if you want a really fast game, just have a Ogier player and a Solfin player in the same pod, and
oh god, yeah,
you'll be done in like 10 minutes. Like that's gonna be the
yeah.
fastest game ever.
I mean, I don't know if they would be able to go CEDH level, so tier 5. Maybe.
Mm,
I think it would
there,
depend
there
on.
could be.
Yeah, I have a feeling it would be very. I see. I don't know. I don't play CDH anymore, so I'm not sure what the
Right, we don't
current meta
do.
is.
They'd have to, yeah, they'd have to do something with the meta, which is dumb. But no, I think they could
'Cause-
be very good, very optimized, and definitely up there as far as power. So if you want a good, strong, power deck that's pretty budget, burn is cheap no matter what you do. So you can get these guys going for sure.
oh yes. So, what is your next commander?
My next one is just this wacky dude. He's just an absolute buffoon, a wild, chaotic, mad lad by the name of Norin the Wary. He is a
Yeah.
1 drop. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 1 red for a legendary human warrior, which is really funny. He's a warrior, not a coward. Let the record stand that he is a warrior. When When a player plays a spell or a creature attacks, you remove Norn the Wary from the game, and you return him to the battlefield to play under his owner's control. So it's not just return to the battlefield. He comes back into play under the owner's control at the end step. So, and his flavor text is so great. I have a bad feeling about this. So for every Star Wars fan out there, Norn the Wary is just so good. But he's pure chaos. Is the best way that I built him. I played him years and years ago as just a really funny jank chaos deck, which I think embodies the other side of red. So when we say chaos, right, it's not exactly difficult to explain. It basically constitutes playing cards that flip the game on its head. Essentially, you're playing things like Possibility Storm, which is a 3/2 red enchantment. So a 5-drop that has crazy paragraph of text. So let me actually really lock this one down. Whenever a player casts a spell from his or her hand, that player exiles it. Then exiles cards from the top of his or her library until he or she exiles a card that shares a card type with it. That player may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then he or she puts all cards exiled with Possibility Storm on the bottom of his or her library in a random order. So, it's like, I want to cast, I don't know, a Trinisphere. But instead, what we'd always do is like, okay, I'm going to play Trinisphere, form of a Soul Ring, right? It's like, yep. I want to counter a spell. Okay, well, I play Counterspell in form of something else, because it's like, you may not get Counterspell. You may get Brainstorm or some other instant, maybe a Sight Grift or something else that doesn't actually counter the spell that somebody else is playing. So it's a lot of effects like that where you're just completely altering the way the game is played. And my all-time favorite one to play with this, just to be an absolute degenerate, chaotic gremlin, was Warp World.
Okay.
Which is a 5/3 red, so it's an 8-mana sorcery that has each player shuffles all permanents he or she owns into his or her library, then reveals that many from the top of his or her library. Each player puts all creatures, artifacts, and lands revealed this way onto the battlefield, then does the same for enchantments, then puts all cards revealed this way that weren't put onto the battlefield on the bottom of his or her library. So it's just like, okay, we have our current setup, but what if we didn't? And we just shuffled it all up and started over. It's just absolutely bonkers. And the whole time Norn is just coming in and out of play. Like, he's just bouncing around whenever anybody does anything. It's like, oh, you attacked? Okay, Norn's gone. Oh, you played a spell? Okay, Norn's gone.
Yeah, that's just freaking insane.
It's absolutely hilarious. Like, you just play all kinds of crazy things like Planar Chaos, where it's like, beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, sacrifice Planar Chaos. But whenever a player plays a spell, that player has to flip a coin, and if they lose the flip, you counter that spell. I absolutely love this deck. I love everything about it.
It seems like it's a fun chaos deck to play.
It can be very cheeky. Because, of course, me being the ass that I am, I played Altar of the Brood with this deck. So every time Norn would enter and leave, people would be milling cards left and right. So the best way to play this was, my favorite opening hand was always turn 1, play a land, play Altar of the Brood. Next turn, play Norn, make everybody mill, and then simply pass the turn. And just let people play their spells, blink Norn, attack, blink Norn, and just keep milling over and over again. So every single turn, people just kept milling their cards. and nobody would deal with it. There was a game where like nobody dealt with alternate brood, so they ended up milling like 20 cards out of their deck. By the time somebody finally blew up the altar, it was just absolutely insane. It's yeah, I mean, and if you like, I will give a shout to one of our other players who this is their favorite card, and you know who I'm talking about. If you watch this, you know who I'm talking about. I did play, and they know this is one of my most hated cards too, but I did play it in this deck years ago. Was Goblin Game.
Oh.
Yeah. So, for those that don't know, which if you don't know what Goblin Game is, more power to you. You're good. You don't need to know what Goblin Game does. It's I need to actually find it here because it's got such a wild text on it. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Stand by, please. Where are you, you piece of crap? There you are. All right. So it's 5 and 2 red for a sorcery. Oh, man, I can't believe I'm actually going to read this. All right. Each player hides at least one object. Then all players reveal them simultaneously. Each player loses life equal to the number of objects he or she revealed. The player who revealed the fewest objects then loses half his or her life rounded up. If two or more players are tied for fewest, each player loses, or each of those players loses half his or her life rounded up. This is not an upset card. This is legal. This is a
Yeah.
real card that exists in the game that people play. I have no words for it. I played it myself. I hated it, but it's yeah. It's something. Every time I see our one friend play it, I just cringe a little bit, and I'm just like, oh shit, here we go. Like you hide a shoe, you hide a dice, yeah,
Yeah, that's insane.
yeah. But
Oh.
it's just pure chaotic fun.
All right. So, for what would you rate him?
Oh boy, I think I gotta put him in like an A somewhere, like maybe like a decent A ranked card, because like as janky and dumb as the chaos stuff is, it does work, right? Like it
Yes.
does do what it's intended to do, which is to just screw up the game in 6 ways to Sunday,
Yeah.
which it can do very well. And I think like on principle too, I probably wouldn't play a deck like this against a precon. Like this is the most ridiculous thing you could pull against somebody just starting out or who just bought a brand new deck to test out, and you pull out fucking Norn the Wary with Goblin Game and shit like that. Like no. So he's definitely an A, and I would probably have him as like a 3, as just like this absurd bonkers of a man who, you know, wants to just screw the game up as many ways as he can and just have a good time.
Yeah, I
But,
don't disagree.
yeah.
So
Did you ever have the misfortune of playing against the Norn the Wary deck?
no, I haven't, and it's one of those decks that I want to see in action.
Don't tempt me. As I'm like reading through the list again and seeing the stuff, it's tempting to rebuild him because it's an absolute blast.
I
It's
I
not one
mean
I play a lot, but
I mean I definitely think that eventually if we go through and go back and do a live play of a pod playing these games, I definitely want to see him when we do mono red from you.
all right, I can do it. But don't say I didn't warn you because like the crazy thing about him is like you have all these different cards in here that nobody has ever seen before. Like, let me ask you this: have you ever heard of Thieves Auction?
No.
All right, it's 4 and 3 red. You set aside all cards in play. All cards in play get set aside. Starting with you, each player chooses one of the cards set aside and puts it into play, tapped under his or her control, and then you repeat this process for all cards.
What the hell?
Yeah, dude.
that
Yeah.
that is some janky ass shit.
That is what I'm talking about. That's what it is.
Like
That's what we do here, brother.
that's that's a card that I would never play at an LGS. Just because so many people will be so pissed off
Bro, you're
that
telling me.
that there's a silent auction for the cards and you have a draft.
Yeah, dude.
Like
It's like,
could you
let's just
freaking imagine, like, for instance, our good buddy Drace, he is big on Eldrazi.
yeah.
And could you imagine he has a huge board state of Eldrazi and
Yeah.
you just bust
And we
that
just
out?
drop that. Yeah. And then like the other players are just like, hey, so we can just, and like depending on the turn order, right? So like if he's like the last guy in the turn order, that's 3 people that get to choose his Eldrazi's before he even gets the chance to take his own cards.
That is
So
awesome.
that's what it is. It's like the starting player, the player casting gets to go first, and then it goes in the turn order. So like each of us just picks a single card, and like it's an 8 drop, so or 7 drop. So casting it late in the game when people have like built up board states, I swear there was one time I cast it, and we spent like 15 minutes sorting through every card in play
Wait,
because we already built up.
does it include lands too?
It does include lands. It's every card. Every card in play gets put aside, and we all start choosing the cards we want.
That
It's
is
so
hysterical.
dumb. Oh,
I
and it's
need
not the
that for
only
some of
one.
my decks.
It's not the only one that does it. You've got another one called Illicit Auction, which is you choose a creature, and each player can bid life for control of that creature. And you begin the bidding at 0. So like it's a literal auction house. Like we're just bidding to gain control of somebody. So like I can only imagine him having like an Eldrazi Titan like Ulamog, and we're just like, oh, well, the bidding, who's got the bidding? Who's going to get that? I have here 5 life, 3 life. So I have here like 8 life, 10 life, 20 life.
Okay,
And it's like,
so
what's the bidding for that? It's so good.
so I'm making a note of this. When we eventually do our mono red table, you need to have both those cards in there.
All right.
Just
Done deal.
just because that's going to be hysterical on stream, especially if we
funny.
don't tell the other players that it's in the deck.
Oh, it's so good.
Me and you can know. But
Oh, we'll know.
that now my question is, like, say I'm playing Krenko, how the hell does that interact with the tokens? Are the tokens still in play, or are they just dead?
For tokens, like if you play the
The
Thieves
first
option.
one. Yeah, the first one you talked about.
Yeah, the Thieves option. So you set aside all cards. So it just says you set them aside. So like you put everything off to the bit, and yeah, it includes everything that's in play. Like they don't leave play. You just get to pick.
Could you imagine if I had like 40 to 50 freaking goblin tokens? How long that would take?
Dude. I think we would probably like
I would cut it.
expedite that a little bit.
Yeah. That's
But the
funny as
funniest
hell.
bit what I love so much about this is that nobody could take my commander
because it
he blinks
disappeared.
out of existence. As soon as anybody plays a spell, right? A spell gets put on the stack. You cast a spell. Norn's gone. He's out the window. He's already vanished. It's like, oh, I want to kill Norn. I play, Doomblade or some shit like that. He's already out the window, bro. He's gone. He already jumped ship. He blinked out of existence.
Yeah,
that spell hit the stack. He's already gone.
Yeah, he's just a little
And
scared.
you'll see him again at the end step. So
like,
yeah,
I feel like if they made
I
him
love
now, If they made him now, he would 100% have the coward tag on him.
He did get a reprint, actually.
He was in Duskborn. I know that.
Hold on, yeah, Norn Swift Survivalist.
Yeah.
So, yep, so this is he can't block. He is a coward. They did change him to coward.
Yeah.
He's a 1-drop 2/1 human coward. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you exile it, and you may play that card from exile this turn.
It's actually not a bad card.
It's a little different. He's not as good as OG Norn.
No.
I wouldn't say because I saw the new Norn with the Duskmine. I'm like, oh, look how they butchered my boy. It's like, what would they do to my boy?
Like, I'm glad they gave him the coward tag because it makes sense.
He's definitely a coward, yeah. But he's so funny.
But all right,
the can't block is weird. Like his other one can't block because as soon as somebody attacks,
he's gone.
Again, he leaves. Like he bounces out. Like if a player declares an attack on me and all I have is Norn, I have no blocks.
Yeah,
he's gone. He ran away.
But all right.
But yeah, I could talk about him for hours, so we can move on.
Yeah. So before we get more involved with Norn here, right. My next commander. So I had a toss-up between a couple, and you and I, the list that I posted, I ended up taking off someone. I ended up taking off Torbran, Thane of Redfell, just because I felt like he was too similar to Osier and Sulfin. And I wanted to talk about someone a little bit different. So it was a toss-up between two. And the first one was the new Alexios.
I like Alexios.
I liked him too, but I felt like we already talked about him in an earlier episode when we were originally going through the colors.
Yeah, he's very good. People have said he's better than Slicer in certain ways because he has the same moniker of like he gets bounced around a lot, right? He does get 1/1 counters. He does have trample. So he gets bigger. He's got the trample already on him. He still can't be sacrificed, like how Slicer can't be sacrificed, so he's got that protection. He has the other bit to him where instead of how Slicer can attack its owner in a 1v1, Alexios can't.
Exactly.
I believe, right, he has that moniker on him where
he cannot attack his owner.
Right.
But so he's an interesting one.
He has to go to an opponent, though, right? He doesn't have the May.
No, he has to.
He has to go to an opponent, yeah.
Yeah, that's what makes him a little tough. But because we already talked about him briefly in one of the earlier Red episodes, I decided to go with a gentleman. And I say gentleman because he looks very gentlemanly-like in his character art.
Oh.
He is from Commander 2021, and that would be Felden of the Third Path. He is 1 Yep. He is 1 and 2 Felden. Red for a 2/3 human artificer. And his ability is 2 red and tap. Create a token that's a copy of target creature in your graveyard, except it is now an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste. Sacrificing it at the beginning of the next end step. So he's a little interesting guy. I would essentially be building him up with a bunch of creatures in that deck with the ability to sacrifice once they're onto the battlefield. For mana, so Ashnod's Altar, that sort of stuff. But I'd be throwing some cards in there, like Goblin Engineer, for getting my artifacts. Because I'd want a bunch of artifacts in that deck to help me with everything else.
For sure.
Cool thing that I was looking into, and it works, is I would 100% put a card like Illusionist Bracers in there.
Oh yeah.
It is a 2-drop for a equipment, and whenever an ability of a equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for that ability or for the copy. So essentially, if
That's
it's
very good.
equipped, now I can bring back 2
Yeah.
creatures instead of just the single one. Then I'd also throw in a card like Mage Rite Stone. It's a 2-drop for an artifact, 1 in tap, untap target creature that has an activated ability with a tap in its cost.
Hmm.
Now, as long as I have mana, I can just keep bringing back creatures onto the field that were killed.
It's very good.
Yeah, so Feldon is a interesting guy here. Um, you could throw in cards like Kiki Jiki and Zealous Conscripts, get that combo
Yeah.
running up.
I definitely put him up there in the high tiers for sure.
Oh yeah,
If
he,
you want to run a 2 card combo like that.
yeah, and there's other combos that you can do that work well with
Yeah.
him. Uh, Kiki Jiki is definitely one of the big ones. Um, and you're also gonna want a card like Terror of the Peaks. Get him out on the
Mm-hmm.
battlefield every time you bring someone back. He pings your opponent.
Yep.
There's a ton of stuff you could do for this guy here. A ton of fun stuff. Some of the cards that you're gonna want in there, Combustible Gear Hulk is a good one
Oh
for
yeah, classic
this.
staple.
Yep. Atali Primal Storm could be a fun one. Cards like Wormcoil Engine.
Oh yeah.
Even,
I got seeing that one come back like constantly is
yeah.
terrifying. You make such an army of fucking little worms with Death Touch and Lifelink. Ugh,
Yeah.
that thing's gonna hit. Ugh,
Then you could throw in
wild.
cards like Duretti, Scrap Savant.
Yep, that's a good one.
And,
You can even do what is it? Sundial of the Infinite.
yep, Sundial of the Infinite would be good
You
with
could do,
that.
yeah. It's like I want to keep my tokens, thank you very much. I don't want to have to sacrifice them,
Exactly. And Sundial
which
of the,
is ridiculous.
yeah. Which I could bring back a shit ton of stuff and then just end the turn.
Yep.
which which is cool. And side note, Sundial the Infinite, it works like that even if you're stealing your
Yep.
opponent's creatures, and it says till the end of turn.
It
So like
does.
cards like Act of Treason, it
Yeah.
just there's no end step. It just turns done.
Nope.
So you
Yep.
keep those
We're
creatures
done
you
here.
stole.
This is mine.
I run Sundial the
Yeah.
Infinite in a couple of my theft decks that are have red in them. But
What an asshole.
yeah, I wonder who showed me that
Uh,
little neat trick.
oh, it wouldn't be me. I would never.
But so with Feldon, he's a unique gentleman. I'd probably put him right around a B, but I would put him in the commander tier list, probably right around a 2 or a 3. I don't think
Yeah,
he's
I can
as
see 3.
powerful as like an Ogier or Soulfoam or even a Norin, but he has the potential to go up to a 4 depending on how many
Oh
combos
yeah.
you put in. But if you don't put any
Right.
combos in there, I think he could be a solid 2. He'd be a fun build
If you
to
want to
play.
downplay it, yeah.
Yeah, I think he could be a fun deck to
You'd have
build
to
up.
like downplay the things.
Yeah, don't put as many like strong creatures. Don't do the combos and shit like that. And I think he'd be a fine deck to
Right.
play. Definitely focused on graveyard recursion with it, without doing actual graveyard recursion. Bringing it back from
Right.
graveyard as an artifact as opposed to, oh, I'm doing some Golgari bullshit and bringing stuff back. But with that, I think he's a fun guy here. But let's continue on here. And Jack, I believe we're on to your last
Yeah.
pick, correct?
My final one. Yep. Saved one of my. Saved a really cool one for last here, and it is Magda, Brazen Outlaw.
Oh, she is a mean one.
So Yeah. Well, hey, I was talking about dwarves, right? I love dwarves. This
Yeah.
honestly is one that I've been looking at as a secondary red deck to build
Yep.
that isn't as bonkers and ridiculous as Slicer. That's just like a fun dwarf tribal
Fun
deck to build
dwarf
with some
tribal.
dragons.
She immediately
Yeah,
makes it
yeah,
like
just
she's like CEDH level.
nah. Magna is very simple. So she's one in a red for a dwarf berserker. Other dwarves you control get +1/+0, and whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, you make a treasure token. See, pretty simple so far, right? She's only a 2/1. Although I guess we'll read the final line of text, right? You sacrifice 5
Yeah.
treasures, search a library for an artifact or dragon, and just put it onto the battlefield. So, you know, yeah, you get some dragons, you get some cool artifacts, maybe.
Yeah.
It's all right.
That's not
Just listen.
powerful at all.
It's fine. Turn 3, I can maybe plop down a Utvara Hellkite or Drakuseth. It's fine. Or like a Cavern Horde Dragon. It's not a problem. Maybe an Ancient Copper Dragon if I want to spend $100.
Are they still $100?
Looking at that, like Card Kingdom's probably got them around like 95. Yeah,
Jesus.
Ancient Copper is up there. But Magna's a lot of fun. Like I love dwarves in all aspects. Being a big Lord of the Rings fan, the dwarves are my boys. I love their culture. I love their way of being, and just playing a fun. Like I've been wanting to build a solid dwarf tribal deck that can be on par or close to like the elves. The problem is dwarves don't have that. They don't have that support, right? They don't have that level of ridiculous, lords and things that like elves, zombies, merfolk. Dwarves just aren't there. They didn't get that love, you know?
Yeah.
Like the best things we have in dwarves is things like let's see, we got a dwarven recruiter who lets you basically grab a bunch of dwarves from your deck and put them on top of your library, kind of like the goblin recruiter.
Okay.
We've got that for dwarves, right? So he comes in, search for any number of dwarf cards, put them onto your deck, like on top in any order, and then you can go from there, which is kind of cool. But like a lot of we got 7 dwarves, so you can play your 7 dwarves, which I have all 7, so I could play 7 of them, which is cool. But like you really don't have much in terms of like the lords that elves and merfolk have that like really pump up the dwarf army. So with this deck, you're not really looking to pump up an army of dwarves and swing in per se. Most of the ways that people are going to get the dwarves tapped is through vehicles
Yeah.
and maybe like saddling up some mounts here. Like we got the Gilded Goda or Gilded Gada, however you want to pronounce it, which is a horse mount that whenever it attacks while saddled, you make a treasure token.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just play a dwarf, tap the dwarf to saddle up the horse here and swing on in with that, and there you go. Or play some other vehicles and go to town with them. That works. Like Magda doesn't care how the dwarf gets tapped. She just says if a dwarf becomes tapped, make a treasure, which is pretty sweet. So you would play a card like Zorn, as you mentioned before. You'd play Zorn in this to make some extra treasure and get your ball rolling there. And the really key dragons that I would put into this would be things like the Goldspan Dragon, for sure would be good. Things like Udvara Hellkite, which whenever a dragon attacks, make a 6/6 red dragon. That's pretty good. The thing is with it though is that what's probably prevented me from building it personally is just I don't know, it's just not enough. If we got more dwarves and more cool stuff for the dwarf tribe, then I would probably be more inclined to build it. But for right now, there's just not. It's not all that there for the full dwarf tribe, but she is very strong to go for like the dwarf dragon theme.
Yeah,
which is really great. Like
she's
it's very thematic.
yeah, she's definitely fun with it. What would you put her on the rating scale?
I'd put her in the solid A tier because like you can do your dwarf thing. You can put vehicles in there, which like the modern like the dwarves in MTG, like in the lore of Magic the Gathering, they do have, they're very big tinkers and they make vehicles, they make machines, which is cool. So like they can make their vehicles, you can tap them up pretty quickly to make enough treasure where the dragon is like, oh, you have all this treasure, here comes the dragon to snatch it all up as they do. And she can be pretty good. So I put her in the A. You can definitely make it a fun deck to play against a precon if you didn't want to, throw in the big old game changers and stuff like that you could play in it, like Jessica's Will,
Yep.
Ancient Tomb, stuff like that. If you didn't want to run those, you could definitely make it a solid 2 to play on that. But I'd say making her a 3 is pretty solid and not a bad idea to play. Like, you don't need to drop hundreds of dollars on, like, the One Ring and Ancient Tomb and crap like that. Which is ridiculous if these cards are that expensive.
Yeah, that's insane. All right. So, what tier for commander bracket would you put her in?
About a 3.
All
I'd
right.
say she could sit pretty cool in a 3.
Yeah, I mean, I know building her, you can definitely put her. She used to be CEDH level. I think after they took out freaking Treasure Monkey there and banned him,
Yeah, we lost
she dropped a
Noxide,
little
so
bit.
that yeah. But
But
the third thing isn't a once per turn, so if you have like 15 to 20 treasure, guess what? You're about to drop a crap load of dragons and other big artifacts onto your opponents like nobody's business.
exactly,
So it definitely gets pretty wild pretty quick.
which is gonna be pretty freaking cool. Boom.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I would rebuild Norn before building Magda just as like a fun factor for me personally. As much as I love dwarves and love what they do, I don't know. It's a toss up.
Yeah. All
Of
right.
course.
So my last pick,
Let's go. What do we got?
he is probably the one of the most popular mono red commanders of all time.
100% without a doubt.
And that would be my boy Krenko, Mob Boss. Fuck this guy. I've always hated playing against him. He's his text on the bottom is amazing. It
Yeah.
elicits old school mafioso vibes, and it was threats, extortion. Good sir, you have me all wrong. I'm a legitimate businessman. My colleagues and I are simply here to conduct legitimate business. I mean, come on, that
Of
is
course.
like straight out of
Absolutely.
that's straight out of The Sopranos. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
But I guarantee almost everyone knows who Krenko is. But for those that don't, he's on the screen, and he is 2 and 2 red for a 3/3 Goblin Warrior, and his text in there is tap, create X 1/1 Red Goblin creature tokens, where X is the number of goblins you control. That can get bonkers very, very fast. So
Yeah, I can.
yeah, so
Krinko's really good.
so one of the main cards you're gonna want in there, it's actually a brand new card, and it is Howl's Squad Heavy. It's from Ether Drift for 2 and a red for a 2/3 Goblin Mercenary. It has start your engines. Other goblins you control have haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. That token attacks this combat if able. And then it reads max speed, tap, add red for each goblin you control.
Yeah, because goblins needed a freaking
Yeah.
elvish
Yeah.
archdruid to be in their thing. Or like they needed a priest of Titania for sure, right?
Yeah.
Goblins needed that.
Exactly.
That's what they needed.
But so you're also going to have cards in there like Goblin Matron.
Yep.
She's on the screen now. You're going to have Goblin War Chief. Same deal. That
Yeah.
it's also given your goblins haste. So it's a little bit of a extra thing if you have Hollow Squad Heavy. Hollow Squad Heavy does enough other stuff to make it so I want most. But the big thing I like about War Chief is they cost one less.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Because, your cheap goblins had to be cheaper.
Exactly. Right? They gotta be.
Like, most of them are cheap enough to begin with, but let's make them cheaper anyway.
Yeah. So I would throw in stuff like Goblin Bombardment, Goblin Chieftain, Pashalik Mons,
Yep.
Impact Tremors. Impact Tremors is a lot of fun, especially with Krenko.
That Perforos too.
Yep. But you got cards. I mean, there's really 5 big goblin lords that bump up other goblins. And that's going to be Runevelt Horde Master, Goblin King, Goblin Trash Master, Hobgoblin Bandit Lord, and Goblin Chieftain.
And that's what dwarves is missing, right? So like all that stuff that goblins have, that elves have, that's what the dwarf tribe is missing. Come on, Watsy, we need it for dwarves. Where's the dwarf love? Come on. Help a brother out. Help a dwarf man out.
It's not going to. I don't think it's going to happen.
It sucks,
like,
man.
I thought for sure in Kaldheim we were going to get some love from the dwarves, but we didn't.
We gotta go back to Kaldheim and get some dwarf love.
Yeah. I would love to go back to Kaldheim, actually.
Right?
But with that, Krenko...
Yeah, Krenko's...
He is a badass. I would put him probably in the high A, maybe S.
I would argue S as like the most played, most popular. Like, he's the quintessential go-to for any kind of goblin deck. For the most part, like, you can play goblins and have him in the 99. But if I was, telling somebody, hey, you want to play a goblin deck that's just really good, play Krenko.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I would definitely put him tier 4. Tier 3, tier 4. Yeah.
He can definitely bounce between 3 and 4, for sure.
He might even be able to do
those game changers.
Yeah, he might even
be able to... He can definitely go meta.
Yeah. So...
Yeah. So good.
With that... We just had MagicCon, or Command Fest, whatever the one was in frickin' Chicago.
Oh, yeah, MagicCon, yep. That was their big test for the brackets and all that.
Yeah, we haven't heard much about the brackets back yet. We will, as soon as we hear back, we will make a video about it. But
I'll probably give it like a week or so.
Yeah, but the one thing we did get is we got some spoilers, folks. And these spoilers are holy shit. So... we are going to be getting one commander deck for each of the tribes on Tarkir. That is awesome. And looking at these, we are getting 2 solid commanders in each of these commander decks. There's going to be a humanoid and a dragon for each one. Which is really freaking cool. I know we've talked about it out of this a bunch, but we're getting a new Narset. We're getting a Taval, the Balanced Scale. We're getting Baator, Ancestor's Voice. So those 4 decks. Let's see. So the commander decks, we are getting an Abzan Armor deck. We are getting a Jeskai Striker deck. We are getting a Sultai Arisen deck, a Mardu Surge deck, and a Temur Roar deck. So
Now, I'm expecting the Temur deck to be like a Dragon Tribal
yeah,
style, I think.
So we'll go through a little bit here. The Abzan deck is going to be focused around toughness matters. The Jeskai deck is going to be focused around casting extra spells. The Sultai deck is around graveyards. Mardu deck is going to be built around attacking token creatures. And the Temur deck is built around ramping, it looks like. So you're probably going to get
into big dragons.
Yeah, you're probably going to have a lot more big
to
dragons in Temur here. But I'm really freaking excited for these.
They do all look really cool. The Sultai Arisen has my attention as, me being the lovely necromancer that I always am. If I wasn't building the Micro Tyrant right now, I would probably be more inclined to do the Sultai deck. But I've actually found a really cool niche with the fungi. Excuse me. And just building up a really cool army of fungus creatures and dredging a lot. So I probably will bypass, unless the Sultai deck has some really cool stuff for like self-mill in it, I might snag it for those to take it apart. But I'm mostly excited for the Dragon Tribal because I've been wanting to have a Dragon Tribal deck for a while since I took apart Miram.
Yeah, so, I mean, as you know, I have my Miram deck. I love my Miram.
And you still have your Miram, yeah.
I will never.
That's so good.
I'll never unbuild her just because right now my Miram deck is probably my strongest deck that I have.
Which that tracks, yeah.
I want to build her up even stronger, and with cards coming
you're gonna
in,
get your stuff.
Yeah, like Mox frickin' Jasper. Are you fucking kidding me? Add one
Mox
mana
for dragons.
Yeah, I mean, add one mana of any color. Activate only if you control a dragon. Like that is frickin' disgusting.
You don't even need to like. It's not so restricted where. When I first read it, my dumb brain had its coffee yet. So I'm like, only activate to cast a dragon. What? Which, no, you can use the mana for anything, but you can only activate it if you have a dragon.
Yeah.
But I love this new Sarkhan we got, the Dragon Ascendant.
Yeah, he's interesting.
This guy is cool. He's one of red. I'm sure we'll have him up on screen here too.
Yep.
When he enters, you may behold a dragon. Which, from what I read of his Oracle text, like the text of it was, to behold a dragon, the way that they're doing is you either reveal one that's in your hand, or you, like, point to one that's in play, like, here's a dragon, here it is.
Yeah, you don't even have to reveal anything in your hand. You don't even have to reveal anything in your hand. If you have a dragon on the field, just point to the dragon.
Right. Like, here's my big scary Tyrant of Jund. Here's my Karthus. Here you go.
Yeah. But
which is wild. And then, like, so if you do that, you make a treasure. But then he's got this other crazy bit where it's like, whenever a dragon ETBs, he gets a 1/1 counter. And then he becomes a dragon with flying.
Yeah.
So if you're, like, blinking dragons left and right, like in your Miram deck, right? You're making dragon tokens like crazy. You're blinking dragons all over the place. You're going to have a giant fucking Sarkhan by, like, turn 7 or something. Like, it's going to be...
He's 100% going into my Miram.
Oh, absolutely, dude. Like, Sarkhan is... He was always one of my personal favorites. Like, I've always liked Sarkhan. I thought he was a cool dude. Because, like, who doesn't love dragons?
Exactly.
Dragons are badass. Everybody should play dragons. At least at some point. Always play dragons at some point. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, fast mana, get your dragons out, destroy some fucking creatures. But
absolutely, big battleship, I love it.
Yeah, but with that, everyone, we're calling it a day. Long episode. We had a few technical difficulties, but I'm glad
that's all right.
We straightened this out here. As always, the name's Kava.
This is Jack.
and we will talk to you guys all next time.
Take care.